In the summer of 1997, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA) was monitoring the deep Pacific with SOSUS, a Cold War-era hydrophone network. Most sounds were familiar: the groan of tectonic plates or the songs of whales. But on a quiet afternoon, a sensor picked up something that defied every known acoustic profile in the maritime world. The sound was immense. It was an ultra-low frequency underwater noise that lasted for about 1 minute. It began as a deep rumble and then blooped upward in frequency. It was so powerful that it was detected by multiple sensors over 3,000 miles apart. In the world of marine acoustics, this was the equivalent of a shout that could be heard across an entire continent. Scientists at NOAA's Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory were baffled. They played the recording at 16 times its normal speed to make it audible to the human ear. The result was a distinctive, liquid bloop sound. From that moment on, the anomaly was officially dubbed the Bloop, a simple name for what would become one of the greatest mysteries of the deep sea. The first question was simple: what made it? The bloop had a quasi-harmonic nature, meaning it looked like a sound made by a living creature. However, there was a problem of scale. The sound was several times louder than the loudest known biological noise, the call of a blue whale. If it was an animal, it had to be something far larger than any whale ever recorded. Cryptozoologists and enthusiasts quickly latched onto the idea of a superpredator. They calculated that for an organism to produce a sound with that much energy, it would have to be hundreds of feet long. Speculation turned to giant squids, prehistoric megalodons, or even a literal leviathan, a creature of such massive proportions that it had remained hidden in the abyss. Fringe theorists pointed to a chilling coincidence. The coordinates of the bloop were remarkably close to the fictional sunken city of Arlie from H.P. Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu. Lovecraft had placed his sleeping mountain-sized deity at 47S126W. The bloop originated at 50S100W. For fans of the macabre, the sound was the waking call of an ancient cosmic horror. Some wondered if the bloop was a man-made phenomenon. Could it have been a secret sonar test, an underwater explosion, or a classified submarine experiment? However, the Navy denied any involvement, and the acoustic signature didn't match the ping of sonar or the sharp, percussive crack of a bomb. It was too organic, too slow, and far too powerful for human technology. NOAA researchers spent years waiting for a repeat of the sound. They combed through thousands of hours of underwater audio, looking for another bloop. While they found other strange noises, dubbed Julia, Train, and Slow Down, none had the same iconic frequency rise or the sheer acoustic footprint of the original 1997 event. The bloop remained a singular, haunting occurrence. As the years passed, scientists began to look toward the South Pole for answers. They knew that the ice quakes created by the movement of massive glaciers produced significant noise. They wondered if the thermal expansion and contraction of Antarctic ice could be the culprit. Perhaps the bloop wasn't a who or a what, but a where, the sound of a continent cracking. In the early 2000s, NOAA deployed more hydrophones closer to Antarctica. They began to record sounds that were strikingly similar to the bloop. These were identified as icequakes, the sound of massive icebergs calving and scraping against the seafloor. When a miles-long sheet of ice snaps, it releases an incredible amount of energy into the water, echoing for thousands of miles. By 2012, the mystery was officially solved in the eyes of the scientific community. When the spectrogram of a known iceberg calving event was compared to the 1997 bloop, the patterns were nearly identical. Both showed the same frequency shift and duration. The bloop wasn't a creature's vocalization. It was the acoustic death rattle of an Antarctic ice giant. Despite the official explanation, many were disappointed. The icequake theory, while scientifically sound, lacked the wonder of a deep-sea monster. Skeptics pointed out that while the sounds were similar, the 1997 bloop was still exceptionally loud and clear compared to most icequakes. The Leviathan lived on in the public imagination, a ghost in the machine of the ocean. The bloop highlighted how little we actually know about the deep ocean. Over 80% of the world's oceans remain unexplored and unmapped. If a sound that massive could go unexplained for 15 years, what else is moving in the trenches where light never reaches? The bloop served as a humbling reminder that the Earth still holds secrets far beyond our current understanding. The bloop was just one of several unidentified maritime noises. Slow Down 1997 sounded like something dragging across the floor, while Upsweep 1991 was a long train of narrowband sounds. Most have been attributed to volcanic activity or ice, but each one initially sparked a period of intense speculation and fear of what might be lurking in the vile vortices of the sea. Oceanographers now use these sounds to track the health of the planet. The increasing frequency of ice quakes like the bloop is used as evidence for climate change and the accelerating melt of the polar ice caps. Quote, "The bloop is no longer a monster's call, but a symptom of a changing world. A warning bell ringing from the coldest corners of the earth into the deep Pacific." Today, the bloop heap lives on in internet culture. It is a staple of creepypasta stories and YouTube documentaries. It represents the unexplained era of the early internet, where a low-quality audio file could launch 1,000 conspiracy theories. It remains the most famous sound in history that almost no one actually heard in person, existing only as a digital waveform. Why did the bloop capture our imagination so strongly? Psychologists suggest it's because the ocean represents the ultimate unknown we project. Our fears of the dark and the immense into the water. A sound we can't identify becomes a monster because, deep down, we still fear the predators that our ancestors once faced in the wild, now moved to the deep. The sensors that caught the bloop are now being used for peaceful purposes, like tracking whale migrations and monitoring underwater volcanoes. The technology that once looked for Soviet submarines is now our best ear for listening to the heartbeat of the ocean. Every day, these hydrophones catch new sounds, waiting for the next bloop to challenge our science once again. If the bloop was indeed ice, it was an iceberg of staggering proportions. The energy required to send that sound 3,000 miles is almost unfathomable. It reminds us of the sheer scale of the natural world. Whether it was ice or a beast, something massive moved that day in 1997, and the ocean vibrated with its presence, proving that the deep is never truly silent. The bloop remains a landmark in marine science and folklore. It bridges the gap between hard data and myth. Even though we have a rational explanation, the name still evokes a sense of mystery. It is a reminder to keep listening, for in the vast, dark pressures of the deep, quote, the next sound we hear might be something that science cannot so easily explain away.